Okay, hello there. I'm here today in lovely Broadstairs with a fabulous lady called Niema Ash. I've known Niema quite a little while, but only really sort of feel I've started to get to sort of understand her a bit from reading some of her new book called Nomad Girl. And I was so impressed by it and so excited by it. I asked her if she'd talk to us a little bit about her life, what's kept her going with this extraordinary story that I've read in this memoir. And so I'd like to introduce you now to Niema Ash and say good morning, Niema, and tell us a little bit about how Nomad Girl came about.
Okay. Good morning, Susie. Thanks for saying all those nice things about me. I really like it.
Oh, it's all
Doesn't
true.
often happen. Okay, how a book came about. Well, I'm a writer, and I wanted to write a book about the Finjan. The Finjan was a folk music club, that sort of coffee house music club that we had in Montreal when I was actually quite young. And I had a lot of very, very unusual experiences because we had different people come and sing. We had a different person, different musician every week, and because we couldn't afford to put them up in hotels, um, they came and stayed with us, and I was the one who was in charge of them. So I had a lot of interesting experiences with different musicians. And the club itself was a very interesting experience because there weren't any coffee houses like that, music coffee houses in Montreal. And, uh, and I had seen them in New York. I had been in them in New York, and I just loved them. They were very exciting to me. And I was always intrigued by musicians. I just felt a tremendous affinity with them. And having my very own club with very own musicians, I mean, that was a real treat. And so I wanted to write about it, especially since the musicians played at a time when they weren't famous, and they played in small coffee houses just to gain experience. Um, so we had a lot of them that became really famous eventually. And it was really interesting to know them when they weren't famous and what they were like and what the things that they thought about and the experiences they went through. And I had a tremendous sympathy for them. And I really felt, although I wasn't a musician, I felt like I was one of them. So if I couldn't be one of them, at least I could be with them. So I wanted to write a book about that. And but I didn't have enough material. I did have enough material to fill a book. And then I happened to be in the Santa Barbara, because that's where my daughter lives. I was visiting her, and I knew that the writer Jack Canfield lived in Santa Barbara. Canfield is the one who wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and as a matter of fact, he sold more books, more nonfiction books than anybody ever, and very, very, very popular. And he was giving a seminar about writing, and I thought, wow, what an opportunity. I'm in Santa Barbara. He's in Santa Barbara. I'd love to meet him anyway, and it was at his home, which was a very intimate situation. So, yeah, so I went to the seminar, and it was really, really amazing because there weren't many people in it. I mean, it was limited to, I think, about 12 people, and he took an interest in every one of us, and we all presented, what the problems were. My problem was I wanted to write this book, but I didn't have enough material. What was I to do? And he interviewed me, and he started the interview by saying, Niema Ash is one of the most interesting people I've ever met. I was just absolutely floored. I was really taken by surprise. I mean, this man knows everybody, including Oprah. And I'm one of the most interesting people he's ever met. I mean, how could that be? So, and he suggested to me, after we spoke a lot about my life and about various things in the interview. By the way, the interview is on YouTube, if anybody wants to see it. He suggested that, why don't you write a memoir? You could write part of it about the Finjan, and then go on to write about the rest of your life. It just seems so interesting to me. I mean, you've even met the Dalai Lama, So I thought, yeah, well, if Jack Canfield finds me interesting, maybe other people will too. I didn't think personally that I was that interesting, but he did. It doesn't matter what I think. It matters. I'm not going to buy the book. It matters what other people think. So that's what I did. I wrote a, I wrote a memoir, and that's how the book came to be. Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right. I think we've got Nima's phone, so I'm just going to hit the pause button
Yeah,
for a
put- yeah,
moment,
put
and
the
then we're going to
pause-
carry on. Oh no, it's all right. They've gone. They've given up.
Who's
So-
given up?
I think I
Oh,
think
that-
somebody
yeah,
was ringing
yeah.
you. No. But I have to say, I mean, after sort of reading sort of Nomad Girl over the last sort of week, it is quite a fantastic memoir of what is quite an absolutely extraordinary life. Very much about sort of a total passion about travel and exploring and people, but certainly the Finjan and the sort of the club that you had and the people that you met is a really sort of key part of it. I mean, I was just really interested in sort of the person behind all of those things that you've done and achieved, which we'll talk a bit more about in a moment. But what is it that keeps you going and makes you ready to sort of leap into situations that others would just think that's completely crazy, or have a sort of, I don't know, a sort of an honesty or whatever that gets you to sort of meet and have these amazing relationships with some extraordinary people? What keeps you at it? What makes you
I
do
was
these
always,
things?
ever since I was little, I was very, very adventurous, and I really wanted to see the world. I mean, most kids, I don't know, maybe they're not presented with it or something, but I was always intrigued. And I think I say in the book, that while my friends were intrigued with photographs of Marlon Brando and all the other famous actors at the time, I was intrigued by names like Tanganyika and Mozambique and things like that. And I wanted to see them. They were just so interesting to me. And ever since I was young, people ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I never knew what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a hairdresser, and I didn't want to be a nurse, and I didn't want to be a teacher. And that's what most kids say, or fireman, fire lady, or police lady. I didn't know what I wanted to be. And then when I was about 8 or 10 years old, I read a book about a nomad boy. And he goes from oasis to oasis, and he has all these adventures. And when the adventure dries up in one oasis, he just goes to another oasis. And I thought, yeah, that's what I want to be. I want to be a nomad girl. And I want to go to oasis and have all these adventures. And I knew that I didn't have a desert, and I didn't have an oasis. But it was a dream that I always had. Somehow I would manage to do that, I would. And then, when I was a bit older, I kind of worked out the puzzle. And I thought, yeah, I know what. The world will be my desert, and everywhere I stop will be my oasis. And that's what carried me on. I wanted to see the world. I wanted that adventure. And I remember a friend saying to me, why do you keep jumping off cliffs and then saying it hurts? Stop jumping off cliffs. But I used to jump off cliffs all the time. And I never wanted to grow up. Where most girls of my age, they wanted to put on lipstick and they wanted to be older. I didn't want that. I never wore lipstick. I never wanted to be older. I just wanted to be. And I wanted to be and see the world and go places and do things. And the things I wanted to do weren't things like, engineering or medicine or stuff like that. I just wanted to be in the world, and I wanted to meet people.
Well, the book has a total sense of that, of being in the moment, and I think it's a very brilliant read for that, because it absolutely keeps you going, and you keep going on more and more and more, of being in the moment and sinking yourself entirely into things, and then when they stop, they stop. And I love the way that you write it, with the idea of then it's what's my next oasis, where am I next, and you end up in another story and another whole life. It is quite fascinating. Just going to have a little pause for a moment, and then we're going to come back. Okay, let's talk a little bit about sort of, maybe let's sort of take one of the sort of the things about the Finjan Club and the kitchen that you mentioned. This is sort of probably about the first half of the book. And when you sort of say you met some amazing people, you certainly met and got to know and had some extraordinary situations with some very amazing people. And I loved in it the whole thing about musicians, that you said that one of the things that you love about musicians, and that is having a head full of magic, and how you sort of explored that in so many different ways with so many different people. So I just wondered if you wanted to tell us a little bit about one of the musicians who became really famous, that was part of your life in the Finjan.
Okay. Well, my home was always open to the musicians, and I was always open to the musicians, and I could see myself in them. And I was it was interesting because it was a time when they were just writing their own material, because previous to that, musicians sang songs, they sang kind of worker songs, or they sang folk songs, or they sang popular songs, but they didn't sing material that they had actually written. But that was a time when they were just starting to sing material that they had written. And one of the ones most famous for that was Bob Dylan. And I was so interested. Well, Bob Dylan sang at the club. And a very, very interesting thing is that...
how old would he have been then, Niema?
He was in his early 20s.
Early 20s, right.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, people walked out on him. He was the only musician we ever had, and we had many, that people walked out on. They didn't like his sort of voice. It was too rough. And he was very unprofessional at the time. It was one of the first times that he had produced one album, but he really wasn't yet competent at performing, and he was just starting. He was just starting out. And when he got on the stage, he was fiddling with his guitar, and I remember when I saw him in New York, and he sang. It was one of the first times he sang in public. In New York they had something called a hootenanny, and anybody could sing for 15 minutes or whatever. They gave them, they would interview them. If they were good enough, they could have the stage for 15 minutes. And when he got on the stage, it was the same thing. He was fiddling with his guitar. He couldn't adjust the strings. And I remember somebody yelling out, he says, "Get on with it. We didn't come here to sleep."
and then is that where you saw him first, and you invited him to your club?
That's where I saw him. I didn't invite him to the club.
Oh, right.
No. What happened is that I saw him, and we got to talking with him, and he said that he was going to perform in a club in Montreal, and he said it wasn't our club. It was someone else, that he was going to sing somewhere else, and he says, "Would you know anywhere cheap that I could stay?" And I said, "Well, why don't you stay with us?" I mean, I was very much like that, I was jumping off cliffs all the time. And I said, "Yeah, come and stay with us." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he came and stayed with us. And part of staying with us, because we had the folk music club, he performed he performed for us. And I remember Shimon, my ex-partner, paid him $9. And in later years, I thought, what amazing kudos people have, to tell a story when being out for dinner. I walked out on Bob Dylan.
Yeah, that is something, isn't it? And did you stay sort of in touch with him at all as
yes,
years
I
went
stayed
by?
in touch with Bob Dylan. And as a matter of fact, he gave me a key to his flat. And I used to stay when I came to New York, because we used to come to New York quite often to interview musicians and listen to musicians and get musicians for the club. And I remember one time, I think I wrote about it in the book, when we were talking to him in New York at some place we met him. That is my partner and myself. We were talking to him, and somebody else came up, some musician came up, and he wanted to speak to Shimon, my partner, and some other musicians came, and they sort of took Shimon away because they were very interested in getting a gig. And Bob Dylan says, "My goodness, your husband is popular."
And Bob Dylan was just one of very many extraordinary people that you had in the club, and that became very good friends.
Yeah, well,
and
I stayed friends with Bob Dylan because I used to see him whenever I went to New York, and in different occasions, and we did different things together. I have some of the incidents in the book, of our friendship and what we did and what he was like and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, there was like John Lee Hooker, who became very, very famous.
oh, I was intrigued by the thing of him writing on the wall.
I know that was really something. That was for me a tremendously humiliating experience. It was just awful, what I did. Um, what happened is that we had a big white wall in the kitchen, and at one point, one of the musicians that was there wrote on it in indelible ink. He wrote, "This is the one and only kitchen in the whole wide world." And I was furious with him. I said, why did you do that? I can't get this off the wall. Why did you deface my beautiful kitchen? And he said, I did it because it had to be done. and so he said, this is going to be a wall of fame from now on. And all the musicians must write on the wall. I thought, oh, okay. Sounds like a good idea. I forgave him instantly. And so when John Lee Hooker performed, as he was leaving, I said, Johnny, you can't leave before writing on the wall, everybody writes on the wall. And he said, no, I don't think so. No. I said, what do you mean, no, you have to do it, everybody's done it. Why should you be different? And he said, no, I don't think I want to, he was very, very hesitant. I couldn't make it out, and I was kind of twisting his arm. I said, look, you have to do it, I guess I twisted his arm till it almost broke, and he finally said, I don't know what to write. And at the time he had this famous song called Boom Boom. And I said, well, just write Boom Boom. You don't have to write anything else. Just write Boom Boom and sign your name. And he said, okay, very grudgingly. And I gave him, it was a very kind of thick pen. And I could see by the way he was holding it that something was weird. And he started writing on the wall, but instead of writing Boom Boom, he wrote moo or something, some weird thing. And he didn't sign his name. He just kind of made a scribble. And I suddenly realized he can't write. And look what I've done. I've humiliated him. I've humiliated myself, forcing him to do this. And, it was just so awful. I was just so sorry that I had done this to him. But interestingly enough, many years later, I was in Ireland, and his son was singing at a club in the town that I was in, and I went to hear his son sing. And afterwards, I approached him, and I said, I have something to tell you that's just so awful, that I've been suffering with it for the rest of my life. And I told him what I had done. He started to laugh. He said, Dad thought that was really funny. He said, Dad said to me, she didn't know I couldn't write.
So it was all okay.
And it was all okay, but that took a lot of years to happen.
Yeah, that's hard, isn't it, when things like that happen, that you've got no idea and you sort of walk into it, you can't help it. Just wanted to ask you sort of one more thing really, and that's sort of going really back, it's really sort of fast forwarding to sort of most recent sort of story that's in the book, and that's sort of after the Finjan, and it's sort of there's some fantastic sort of stories about your amazing travels and your love of Morocco in particular, and finally getting to Tibet, and then sort of meeting the Dalai Lama, actually I think in London, wasn't it?
No, I met the Dalai Lama in Toronto.
It was in Toronto,
yeah.
Was it Toronto? But I was sort of really I thought your travel there in 2018, and your is it Adi, I think?
Oh, Adi. Oh yeah,
Adi,
yeah.
And the idea
My
of
Nomad boy.
writing his story. So do you just want to give us a little flavour of that?
With Adi, it was really, really interesting. We stayed at a hotel called Hotel Panorama that was really in the dunes, and it was just amazing because no one else was staying there. There was just myself and Irina and Gerhard and my sister-in-law, Gite, and we stayed and we got very close to the guys who were working there. And one of the guys was Adi, and at one point, the rest, Gerhard and Irina and Gite, they all left. I didn't want to go because I just wanted to sit there and contemplate the dunes, because I had been in the dunes before and I just really, really love them. I love the silence. I just love the whole feeling of being in the dunes. It's like being nowhere else, you know. I remember some writers saying, you know, after you've come out of the dunes, you're never the same person. And it's really true, really true. There's something very special. Anyway, the hotel was right in the dunes, and I was sitting on the balcony and contemplating the dunes and thinking about it and reading a section that I had written about the dunes in another book. Anyway, suddenly Audie was beside me, and he said, Niema, he said, would you write my story? And I was just, what? Write a story? I said, why don't you tell me a little bit about your story? And he said, no, I have to tell you the whole thing. I can't just tell you a little bit. I said, but look, I'm leaving tomorrow. You know, I can't listen to the whole bit now. And he said, well, why don't you stay? And I said, I can't stay because my friends are all leaving. And he said, well, stay without your friends. And I said, no, that's impossible because I came with them and I have to leave with them. And he's a Berber, and the Berbers understand about honor and responsibility and all that. So he understood that. And he said, okay. And I said, what is your story about? Just tell me something about your story. He says, my story is about Nomad Boy. And I just, wow. I mean, something inside me just went, wow, Nomad Boy. I said, okay, you know, one day I'll come and write the story about Nomad Boy. And I say in the book, you know, we hugged and sealed the promise that one day I will write the story of Nomad Boy. And actually, I've been to Morocco since and seen Audie, and he's told me a bit about the story of Nomad Boy, and it is absolutely fascinating. So maybe one day I'll write the story about Nomad Boy.
I think I'm certainly going to look forward to it, I must say.
I've written about Nomad Girl also.
I think we need Nomad Boy as well. It's really fascinating talking to you, Niema. Thank you so much. The book's great. I know one of your earlier books was about Diana Dawes, and was very popular. I hope sort of people pick up a copy. It's on Amazon. I've got it in my shop in Ramsgate, Nice Things, and I know you've hopefully sort of have some rights to. We won't sort of tempt things because, you know, till the contract's sealed, there's always the thing. But I know you've got a contract sort of in the offering for international
I've sold
sales.
The rights to Canada and United States, which is really a big deal for me to do that. And their version is going to be out in the spring.
Yeah,
it'll be a different cover, but it'll be the same book.
Brilliant.
So, but in the meantime, it is available at Susie's Nice Things shop
and on Amazon.
And Amazon. And various other places, Book Depository, and I don't know, a lot of different places.
And it's a good read, guys. It's a good read. So thank you so much. See you again.
See you again. Thank you, Susie. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.